Z-Warp is the latest game from Panda Indie Studios, and if you've played any of their previous games, such as Void Gore, Project Starship, Red Death, and Null Drifter, then it's more of the same, and that's all you need to know. Go off and buy if it's up to your spec. However, if you are relatively new and looking at budget shoot-em-ups and you've not tried a Panda Indie Studios games before, stick around and I'll explain what it's all about. In this game, you are playing as your lone starship, wandering across the galaxy, shooting and killing everything in sight. Part of the difficulty of these styles of games, particularly with Panda Indie Studios, is the visceral, in-your-face, loud and garish graphics, because everything looks and feels very overwhelming from the bullets hell coming towards you. And that's intentional, because what you need to do with this game is use your fire in a very tactical way to clear the gaps between the waves of bullets coming towards you so that you can survive. You do this in two ways. Firstly, in a very similar way to how like the traditional cave games would do this, you've got a fire button that you can press and release for a spread shot, or you can press and hold and it will kind of narrow down your shot power to a much more powerful but much more narrow laser beam. I found, because I bought this for PS4, PS5 on cross-buy, that if I just press and hold square, the spread shot did me fine for about 95% of the game. So take a tip, do that. But as you go through this game, when you get to waves of bullets, or particularly in boss fights, waves of bullet hell coming towards you, this is where the bombs come into play. As you're busy causing carnage, shooting out bullets, damaging enemies, you're charging up your bomb. And as soon as it hits around the 50% mark, you can trigger your bomb off. And it depends on between this 50 to 100% mark of completion, how widespread your bomb will go off and affect things. Now, it goes from the centre of your ship out wider, but what it does is it clears all the enemy fire, not just the enemies that is within that range. And so whilst you're going through like the general levels, that's really good for clearing out not just bullets, but like waves of enemies coming towards you. When it comes to the boss battles, it's essential because things will come at you at waves. So what you're doing is trying to find places that you can hide furthest away from the like wave of bullets coming towards you, so that you can trigger your bomb percentage up to at least 50, trigger the bomb so that that causes a break in that wave of fire, and then you can dive through whilst still shooting and starting that recharge up again. And once you get used to that kind of mechanic, Z-Warp becomes very easy very quickly, particularly on the easy and medium difficulties. The other thing that this game does, and I quite like it actually, because it means that particularly if you're not very skilled at these games but enjoy them, which is generally where I fall into, every game over you do on the main campaign mode, the game then gives you an extra credit on top. So that in theory then means that if you play at the same skill or you get better, which is invariably what happens on this game over time, you'll get further, but then you've got an extra like credit to go further in the game as well. And so you'll see the 4 levels actually really quite quickly, and then it's up to you whether you want to then ratchet up the difficulty level to normal and then hard. And the patterns for boss battles do get much more harder, and there's much more enemies on screen for everything that runs in between those boss battles. The problem though is that this game is towards the easier end of the spectrum, particularly for what Panda Indie Studios do, but it's also probably their shortest. And so you'll be done with it within a couple of hours. But it's one of those ones where if you enjoy these types of shoot 'em ups, I don't think I could put you off it, because it does handle well, it plays well, it's visceral, it's fast, no slowdown, no issues, particularly on a PS5 version. But yeah, just be aware going in that it is going to be short, sweet, and it goes out of its way to make sure that you can see its endings. So it takes away that difficulty skill, and you'll be looking at local online leaderboards to really kind of judge your I did better this time. We're in review over at higherplaygames.com. Any comments or questions, leave them down below. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/HigherPlayNetwork. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.